The first plasma lance struck New Shanghai Colony at 3:47 Universal Time, transforming the sprawling metropolis into a nuclear-bright eruption of vaporized metal and screaming atmosphere. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance, her cybernetic eye processing the destruction with cold, mathematical precision, while her human heart burned with a fury that threatened to consume her entirely. 12 hours earlier, everything had been different. The Galactic Concordance, a supposedly ironclad alliance that had protected human colonies for nearly a century, had seemed unbreakable. Diplomatic channels hummed with routine communications. Trade routes between human settlements and alien civilizations moved with the predictable rhythm of interstellar commerce. No one saw the betrayal coming. The Arcani Imperium had been their closest allies. Shared scientific exchanges, mutual defense agreements, cultural collaborations, all of it had been an elaborate illusion. A decades-long con that would culminate in humanity's near-total extinction. Intelligence reports later revealed the horrifying truth. The Arcani had been systematically mapping human vulnerabilities, collecting data on every colony, every settlement, every potentially defensible position. What humans had perceived as friendship was actually the most comprehensive preparation for genocide in galactic history. Multiple colony clusters going dark. Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported, his voice a study in professional restraint, barely concealing raw terror. New Shanghai is gone. Proxima Centauri outpost, total destruction. Mars' first colony. Marcus trailed off, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed cascading system failures. Elena's cybernetic eye zoomed in on the destruction, analyzing plasma dispersal patterns, tracking weapon signatures, calculating survival probabilities with ruthless efficiency. The numbers were brutal. Less than 0.03% chance of survival for ground-based populations, orbital stations, 2.7% survival probability. Mobile fleet elements, approximately 12.4% potential survival rate. They're not just attacking, Elena murmured, more to herself than to the bridge crew. They're surgical, methodical. This is extinction, not warfare. The Arcani had chosen their moment perfectly. Humanity was spread across multiple star systems, with colonies that seemed strong but were actually vulnerable. Centralized defense networks that looked impressive on diplomatic charts but were, in reality, fragile constructs waiting to be dismantled. A junior communications officer, barely 22, with the haunted look of someone watching their entire world die, spoke up. Captain, we're receiving fragmented transmissions from outer colonies. They're asking for help. Elena's hand, a blend of organic tissue and quantum-linked cybernetic components, clenched into a fist. Help would not come. Not today. Not from anyone. The bridge of the UES Defiance became a crucible of human determination. Each crew member knew they were witnessing the potential end of their entire species. But instead of despair, something else was taking root. A fury. A resolve that would transform grief into something far more dangerous. Navigation. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. Compile all surviving colony coordinates. Communications. Gather every scrap of data on Arcani weapons signatures and fleet movements. Engineering. I want a full diagnostic on our quantum slip drives. They weren't planning a defense. They were planning revenge. Outside the viewports, space erupted in cascading waves of destruction. Entire star systems were being systematically erased. Millions of human lives vanished in nuclear-bright moments of pure annihilation. But in the heart of the UES Defiance, something was being born. A promise. A vengeance that would rewrite the very understanding of warfare, of survival, of what it meant to be human. The Arcani thought they were ending humanity. They had no idea they were actually unleashing something far more terrifying. The Umbra Nebula swirled like a bruise against the infinite black of space, its magnetic storms creating a natural shield that would become humanity's last sanctuary. Here, among the ionized clouds and quantum interference that would scramble most tracking systems, the survivors began their impossible work. Dr. Akira Chen moved between workstations, her movements a controlled hurricane of purpose. Survivors from decimated research facilities had converged here, bringing with them fragments of humanity's most advanced and most heretical technological research. What had once been competing scientific disciplines were now merged in a desperate synthesis of survival. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the remnants of human technological prowess. Quantum computing modules salvaged from Tokyo's advanced research centers, nanomaterial prototypes rescued from Cape Town's underground labs, experimental consciousness interface systems pulled from Sao Paulo's most classified research facilities. Each piece was a memory, a fragment of a civilization that refused to die. "We're not just building a weapon," Dr. Chen announced to the assembled team. Her voice carried the weight of collective trauma and unbridled hope. "We're creating a statement, a technology that doesn't just fight, it speaks." The team was a mosaic of humanity's diversity and brilliance. Dr. Rodriguez, Alina's younger sister, a quantum physicist who had survived by pure chance, worked alongside Marcus Chen, the former communications officer from the UES Defiance. They were joined by refugees, scientists, engineers, and survivors from every corner of human space. Their primary challenge was simultaneously simple and impossible: create a technological system that could not just survive, but utterly overwhelm the Archoni's seemingly invincible military capabilities. Traditional weapons were useless. Conventional space combat doctrine would be suicide. They needed something that didn't just push the boundaries of known science. They needed to obliterate those boundaries entirely. "Look at this," Marcus said, projecting a complex holographic model that seemed to shift and breathe with its own internal logic. It was a theoretical framework for quantum entanglement weaponry, a concept so advanced it had been dismissed as pure fantasy before the war. Dr. Rodriguez traced the holographic lines with her fingers. "We're talking about a weapon system that doesn't just destroy. It uncreates. A technology that can fundamentally alter the quantum state of matter itself." The work proceeded with a frantic, almost religious intensity. Shifts ran continuously, with team members working in carefully orchestrated rotations. Sleep became a luxury, innovation a necessity of survival. They were creating something more than a ship, more than a weapon. They were forging humanity's revenge. Breakthrough moments came in whispers and explosions of insight. A nanomaterial that could phase between different dimensional states. A consciousness interface that blurred the line between biological intelligence and pure computational power. Weapon systems that drew energy directly from quantum uncertainty, creating destruction that couldn't be predicted, defended against, or even fully comprehended. "They thought they could erase us," Dr. Chen muttered during one particularly intense design session. "They have no idea what we're capable of becoming." Each component was a middle finger to the universe that had tried to destroy them. Each system was a testament to human resilience, to the ability to transform collective trauma into pure, unbridled innovation. As the first skeletal framework of their impossible vessel began to take shape, something changed in the atmosphere of the research base. It wasn't just hope. It was something darker, something more powerful. A promise of vengeance so pure, so absolute, that it seemed to bend the very fabric of reality around it. Humanity was not just preparing to fight back. They were preparing to redefine the very concept of warfare, of survival, of what it meant to exist in the universe. The Archoni had made a fatal mistake. They hadn't just attacked a species. They had awakened a force of nature. Dr. Akira Chen's laboratory looked like a nightmare born from the intersection of madness and genius. Holographic displays danced with impossible equations, quantum entanglement chambers hummed with barely contained energy, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with potential. It began with a fever dream, quite literally. 3 days into a continuous research marathon, Chen collapsed. The medical team initially thought it was simple exhaustion, but as her brain waves danced across monitoring screens, something extraordinary happened. The quantum interface system she had been developing began to resonate with her brainwaves, creating a feedback loop that defied every known principle of neuroscience and quantum mechanics. When she awoke, everything had changed. "It's not about observing reality," Chen muttered, her eyes burning with a combination of exhaustion and revelation. "It's about negotiating with it." The breakthrough came from an impossible intersection of disciplines. Neuropsychology met quantum mechanics. Emotional intelligence became a computational variable. Human consciousness was no longer just an observer of reality. It became a potential manipulator of fundamental physical laws. Traditional quantum theory suggested that observation affects quantum states. Chen's work proposed something far more radical. Human consciousness could actively negotiate the fundamental parameters of reality itself. Marcus Chen, no relation to Akira, despite their shared surname, watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. As the lead systems integration specialist, he understood the implications immediately. "You're saying we can weaponize consciousness itself?" Akira's laugh was sharp, almost manic. "I'm saying we can turn human emotion into a computational language more complex than any alien civilization could comprehend." The team began developing neural interfaces that didn't just connect humans to machines. They created a symbiotic relationship that blurred the line between biological intelligence and pure computational power. Each interface was a bridge, a negotiation between human will and the fundamental fabric of spacetime. Early prototypes were catastrophic. One test nearly tore a hole in the fabric of local spacetime, creating a quantum bubble that existed simultaneously in 3 different dimensional states. The research team quickly learned that human emotion was not a tool to be controlled, but a force to be carefully channeled. Rage became a computational algorithm. Grief transformed into a navigational system. The collective trauma of humanity's near extinction became the most powerful weapon imaginable. "The Arcani think in absolutes," Dr. Rodriguez explained during a strategy session. "They see the universe as a fixed system of predictable interactions. We're going to show them that reality is a negotiation." The breakthrough came during a moment of pure, raw emotion. A memorial service for lost colonies, broadcasted across the remaining human settlements, created a collective emotional resonance that actually caused quantum fluctuations in the research lab. Monitoring systems went wild, showing impossible data sets that suggested human emotional output could directly manipulate quantum probabilities. It was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental reimagining of what consciousness could be. "We're not just building a weapon," Akira Chen told the assembled team, her voice steady and absolutely certain. "We're creating a new language of existence. The Arcani didn't just attack our colonies. They awakened something inside us that they could never understand." The quantum dream was becoming reality. Humanity was learning to speak the language of the universe, and they were about to become its most eloquent, most dangerous translators. Something impossible was taking shape, something that would rewrite the very understanding of consciousness, technology, and revenge. The construction bay resembled a cathedral of impossible engineering. Massive holographic projections danced around the skeletal frame of what would become humanity's ultimate weapon of vengeance. Every component challenged the fundamental understanding of space, time, and technological possibility. Chief Engineer Sofia Alvarez stood at the center of controlled chaos, her augmented nervous system directly interfacing with the ship's developing consciousness. The mythical Revenge was more than a vessel. It was a living entity being born from the collective pain and determination of an entire species. Quantum lattice stabilization at 73%, Marcus Chen called out, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with their own internal logic. Dimensional phase modulators are showing unprecedented stability. The ship's hull was a marvel that defied conventional understanding. Metamaterials created from salvaged research across human space formed a skin that could shift between matter and energy. Quantum entanglement circuits woven through its structure meant the vessel could exist in multiple states simultaneously, a physical manifestation of the very theoretical breakthrough Dr. Akira Chen had discovered. At the heart of the ship lay its most revolutionary component, the consciousness core. It wasn't an artificial intelligence in any traditional sense. Instead, it was a hybrid system that merged quantum computing, neural network technology, and something far more ineffable, the collected emotional and psychological imprints of human survivors. Memory integration at 86%, a technician reported, her voice trembling. The consciousness core wasn't just storing data. It was absorbing the collective trauma, rage, hope, and determination of humanity's survivors. Each memory became a computational variable, each emotional scar a potential weapon. During one critical integration phase, something unprecedented happened. The ship's systems began to resonate with a frequency that shouldn't have been possible. Holographic displays flickered with images from lost colonies, with fragments of memories from those who had been destroyed. It was as if the vessel was remembering something that hadn't fully happened yet. Sophia watched in a mixture of terror and awe as the ship seemed to take its first metaphorical breath. The temperature in the construction bay dropped to absolute zero. Every computer screen simultaneously displayed a single message. We remember. We return. The weapon systems defied every known principle of warfare. Plasma cannons that could draw energy directly from quantum uncertainty. Dimensional shift drives that could move the ship through space-time like a thought moving through consciousness. Defensive systems that didn't just block attacks. They could fundamentally alter the quantum state of incoming threats. It's not just a ship, Dr. Rodriguez whispered, her cybernetic eye analyzing systems that seemed to dance between mathematical possibility and pure mythology. It's a statement, a promise. Calibration tests pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding. In one test, the mythical Revenge briefly existed in 3 different locations simultaneously, its quantum signature creating interference patterns that made seasoned quantum physicists question their entire understanding of reality. The final system integration was more ritual than technical procedure. Survivors from every human colony present, engineers, scientists, military personnel, civilians, placed their hands on a central quantum interface. Their collective consciousness would become the final component of the ship's being. As the last connection was made, something shifted in the universe. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a visual phenomenon. It was a feeling. A promise of vengeance so pure, so absolute, that the very fabric of space seemed to hold its breath. The Archoni had destroyed humanity's homes. They had tried to erase an entire species. They had no idea what was coming. The Archoni Imperium's most fortified sector glittered with an arrogance born of millennia of unchallenged supremacy. Massive defense platforms surrounded the central command hub, each equipped with weapons that could obliterate entire planetary systems. Quantum shielding, considered the most advanced defensive technology in the known galaxy, created an impenetrable barrier that had crushed countless civilizations. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the quantum-linked command chair of the Mythical Revenge, her consciousness merging with the ship's core in a symbiosis that defied traditional understanding of human-machine interface. Around her, the bridge crew existed in a state of heightened awareness, part human, part something entirely new. Quantum signature masking at maximum, Marcus Chen reported, his voice a calm counterpoint to the electric tension. We are effectively non-existent to their tracking systems. The approach was impossible. One moment, deep space was empty. The next, the Mythical Revenge simply existed, not appeared, not materialized, simply became. Archoni long-range sensors flickered with confusion. Advanced AI tracking systems began to report impossible datasets, a vessel that simultaneously existed and did not exist, that violated every known principle of spatial recognition. Initiating first phase quantum dissolution, Elena commanded, her words becoming pure computational language that rippled through the ship's systems. The first attack was less a weapon discharge and more a fundamental restructuring of reality. The outermost defense platform simply came apart, not exploded, not destroyed, but deconstructed at the molecular level. Quantum bonds that had held its structure together for centuries unraveled like delicate threads. transforming solid matter into a cloud of disassociated particles. Arconi communication channels erupted in panic. Impossible, the fleet commander screamed, his voice breaking. No weapon can penetrate our quantum shielding. But this was no weapon. This was something far more terrifying. The mythical revenge moved through the Arconi defensive line like a thought moving through consciousness. Each touch was a surgical deconstruction of reality. Entire battle groups dissolved before they could even raise shields. Quantum entanglement weapons created cascading failure states that spread like a cancer through the Imperium's most advanced systems. They're not just dying, Dr. Akira Chen observed from the science station, her voice a mixture of scientific fascination and cold fury. We're unmaking them at a fundamental level. Communication intercepts revealed growing terror. The Arconi had no framework to understand what was happening. Their most advanced sensors could barely register the mythical revenge's existence, let alone defend against it. It was as if reality itself had turned against them. One by one, the Imperium's most fortified installations simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not obliterated, simply unmade. The ship's consciousness core pulsed with a feeling beyond mere combat algorithm. This was vengeance. This was justice. This was a statement written in the fundamental language of the universe. As the last defense platform dissolved, a single transmission escaped the Arconi communication network, a whispered message that would spread like a virus of terror across their entire civilization. They are here, and we cannot stop them. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest moment of satisfaction. The first strike was complete, but this was just the beginning. The universe was about to learn what happens when you try to erase humanity. The Arconi Imperium's communication networks began to fracture in ways that defied rational explanation. What started as isolated incidents of technological disruption quickly evolved into a systematic unraveling of their entire societal infrastructure. The mythical revenge didn't just attack, it haunted. Arconi military commanders found themselves trapped in recursive nightmare scenarios. Communication systems would suddenly broadcast fragments of human memories, snapshots of destroyed colonies, personal messages from victims, moments of human resilience that cut deeper than any physical weapon. These transmissions appeared in secure channels, in private communication nets, in the most encrypted systems of the Imperium. Admiral Krax, the most decorated military strategist in Arconi history, began to lose his mind first. His personal quantum-encrypted communication hub started displaying impossible images. One moment, standard fleet deployment maps. The next, a child's drawing from a destroyed human colony. Surveillance recordings of moments before planetary destructions. Personal logs of Arconi soldiers who had participated in the initial human genocide. The psychological warfare was precise, calculated, and absolutely devastating. "It knows," Krax whispered during an emergency command council. "It sees everything." The mythical revenge's attacks became increasingly phantasmal. It would appear in multiple star systems simultaneously, its quantum signature so complex that Arconi tracking systems couldn't determine if it was one ship or 1,000. Some reports suggested the vessel existed in multiple dimensional states, capable of striking before an attack was even conceived. Arconi neural networks, the most advanced artificial intelligence systems in the known galaxy, began to experience cascading failure states. Each attempt to analyze the human vessel resulted in increasingly bizarre output. Mathematical models would dissolve into fragments of human memory. Tactical simulations would suddenly replay moments of human suffering, human resilience, human hope. Dr. Akira Chen had designed the psychological warfare protocols with a surgeon's precision. The ship didn't just attack. It remembered. It forced the Arconi to remember. Every transmission was a knife. Every quantum disruption a message. Military communication channels became battlegrounds of psychological terror. One moment, standard tactical information. The next, a flood of human experiences. The birth of a child in a colony moments before destruction. a lover's final message, a scientist's breakthrough interrupted by planetary annihilation. The Archoni had believed they could erase humanity. Now humanity was showing them the true meaning of being haunted. Entire Archoni military divisions began to experience collective psychological breakdowns. Soldiers reported seeing phantasmal human figures in their ships' corridors. Commanders found their most secure systems broadcasting personal, intimate moments from human lives that had been destroyed. "We are not gone" became the recurring message, not as a threat, as a promise. The most terrifying aspect was the precision. The mythical revenge didn't just broadcast random information. Each transmission was tailored, surgical, designed to cut through the Archoni's psychological defenses with the precision of a quantum scalpel. Admiral Krax finally broke during a high-level military council. As he was presenting strategic defensive protocols, the room's holographic systems suddenly filled with images of human children from colonies the Archoni had destroyed. Their faces, their hopes, their dreams, frozen moments before annihilation. He began to scream. The Archoni Imperium was discovering a fundamental truth. You cannot erase a people whose memory has become a weapon. Humanity was no longer just fighting a war. They were rewriting the very understanding of psychological warfare. The fall of the Archoni Imperium was not a single moment of destruction, but a systematic deconstruction that revealed the fundamental fragility of their civilization. The mythical revenge had become more than a weapon. It was a surgical instrument of systemic transformation. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood that true victory was not about annihilation, but about reimagining possibility. The first phase targeted the Archoni's most critical infrastructure. Quantum communication networks that had maintained their galactic control for millennia began to dissolve from within. The ship's advanced systems didn't just interrupt communications, they rewrote the fundamental protocols of interstellar governance. Subjugated species long oppressed by the Archoni began to receive encrypted transmissions, not calls to rebellion, but something far more dangerous: comprehensive documentation of the Imperium's centuries of systematic oppression. Every dark secret, every suppressed rebellion, every moment of hidden brutality became accessible. Dr. Akira Chen had designed these transmissions with surgical precision. They were more than information. They were a catalyst for collective consciousness. The mythical revenge moved through Archoni space like a quantum phantom, targeting not just military installations, but the very social and political infrastructure that maintained the Imperium's control. Governance systems collapsed as their foundational lies were exposed. Entire administrative sectors found themselves paralyzed as their communication networks became conduits of truth. "We're not destroying," Elena explained to her command crew. "We're revealing. We're giving every oppressed civilization the tools to understand their own potential." Diplomatic channels became battlegrounds of information warfare. Where the Archoni expected military resistance, they found something far more terrifying: organized, informed rebellion fueled by comprehensive understanding of their oppressors' weaknesses. Quantum data streams carried more than just information. They contained blueprints for technological independence, historical records of resistance, psychological support systems for civilizations emerging from centuries of oppression. The mythical revenge became a living library of liberation. Subspace communication networks that had maintained Archoni control for generations began to fragment. Each transmission carried a subtle quantum signature that gradually destabilized their most advanced control mechanisms. It wasn't destruction, it was systematic liberation. The most remarkable weapon was truth. Archoni military commanders watched in horror as their control systems became conduits of their own brutality. Every attempt to suppress information created exponential waves of revelation. Their most secure systems became the very mechanism of their own exposure. Civilizations that had been considered mere resource pools began to organize. The quantum communication networks provided not just information, but comprehensive support systems. Technical knowledge, psychological healing protocols, diplomatic strategy, all became freely available. "We are creating a new framework of galactic interaction," Dr. Chen observed. "Not conquest, not subjugation, collaborative potential." The Mythical Revenge's most advanced systems were essentially a distributed consciousness network. It didn't just transmit information, it created living bridges between civilizations that had been deliberately kept isolated. Archon leadership found themselves facing a fundamental transformation. Their hierarchical system of control was being systematically replaced by a network of collaborative potential. Military installations became sites of negotiation. Weapons of war transformed into platforms of communication. In the final phases of the campaign, the Mythical Revenge did something unprecedented. It began broadcasting comprehensive reconstruction protocols, not just for the civilizations they were liberating, but for the Archoni themselves. The message was clear. This was not about revenge. This was about evolution. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental understanding of galactic civilization, one quantum transmission at a time. The final confrontation was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a moment of fundamental transformation that would redefine the very understanding of conflict, civilization, and potential. At the heart of Archoni Prime space, the Mythical Revenge materialized. If materialized could even describe its quantum existence, it was simultaneously a vessel, a living consciousness, and something that defied the very concept of physical limitation. Captain Elena Rodriguez felt the ship's consciousness merge completely with her own. The boundaries between human and technology, between vengeance and creation, blurred into something entirely new. The Archoni leadership gathered in their most secure command center, a massive structure that had weathered countless galactic conflicts. They expected a final devastating attack. What they received was something far more terrifying. The Mythical Revenge began to broadcast, not weapons, not destruction, but the complete, unfiltered history of every civilization the Archoni had oppressed, every moment of suffering, every suppressed rebellion, every stolen future. But it didn't stop at revelation. Each transmission carried something unexpected: pathways to healing, reconstruction protocols, systems of collaborative governance that transformed historical trauma into collective potential. Dr. Akira Chen's most brilliant innovation was not a weapon, but a consciousness protocol that allowed different species to truly understand each other. The quantum communication network became a living bridge of empathy, breaking down the barriers that had separated civilizations for millennia. "We are not here to destroy." Elena's voice resonated through every communication channel. "We are here to transform." The ship's systems began to interface with the Archoni's most fundamental infrastructure, not to break it, but to reimagine it. Weapon systems became communication networks. Military control centers transformed into collaborative research platforms. Entire star systems watched in collective awe as the most powerful military force in galactic history was systematically reconstructed from within. The Mythical Revenge wasn't conquering, it was healing. Quantum data streams carried more than information. They were living bridges of understanding, technical knowledge, cultural preservation protocols, psychological reconstruction systems, all became freely available. The ship became a living library of potential, a reset button for civilizational development. The Archoni leadership found themselves facing a fundamental choice. Resistance meant complete dissolution. Cooperation meant transformation. Most shocking was the ship's approach to the Archoni themselves. Instead of punishment, there was an offer of integration, a chance to become part of a new galactic framework that valued collaboration over conquest, understanding over domination. Dr. Chen's final protocol was a masterpiece of quantum engineering. It created a networked consciousness that allowed different species to truly experience each other's perspectives, not through translation, but through genuine empathetic connection. Revenge is a limited concept, Elena explained to her crew. Transformation is infinite. As the final transmission completed, something unprecedented happened. The Mythical Revenge began to deconstruct itself, not destroyed, not defeated, but deliberately transforming its own existence. Fragments of the ship became communication satellites, its quantum core distributed across multiple scientific research platforms. The vessel that had been humanity's ultimate weapon of vengeance became the foundation of a new galactic infrastructure. In its final moments, the ship broadcast a message that would be remembered for generations. We were not defined by what was done to us. We are defined by what we choose to create. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as architects of a new possibility. The universe would never be the same.